Welcome to another episode of the Hobby Hangout with Asu and Dave. This upcoming week, we're going to be traveling to see some family and spend some time together, visit new family members. And with that, I believe there's probably not going to be quite as much,
By new family members, that means babies.
yes, babies. Yeah. And as a result, there's more than likely not going to be quite a lot of time for adults to play board games.
I don't know if it's gonna be cold or if it's gonna be melting and gross outside.
Potentially raining, from what I hear. So,
Potentially,
yeah.
yes. So very likely we're gonna have to stay indoors, which means that it's either gonna be board games or video games. And nowadays with the Nintendo Switch being so easy to carry around, that seems to be a better candidate. What do you think?
For this visit, yes, I do. Easy enough for us to pack it up and bring it with us. It's still enjoyable as a family activity. And I think that kind of that does bring us to today's topic, which is focused around, video games versus board games, and sort of our experience between the two. Um, so as you said, I mean, family activities can encompass a lot of things, right? Both indoor and outdoor activities. I know we do a lot of sports and try to do gymnastics and things like that with the kids and bringing them out. Um, but I think on those days or in the evenings, even and when we want to spend time indoors, we have those options, right? Whether we're going to invest time in doing some board gaming together or video games as well. Do you have a specific preference over the two?
I think it depends on the mood.
Yeah.
There are some video games that just make us scream so loud because we're so excited, we're so into it, and it just kind of like wakes me up. But I wouldn't play them too close to bedtime either because I feel like then you get like on this very high roller coaster, and then it's hard to like calm it down. Whereas a board game, I feel even though when there's emotions, once you pack it up, it just kind of winds down and it makes it easier to go into bed. It's kind of like when you read a book, right?
Mhm.
You may be reading like a very scary book, and then it's like, whew, and you go to sleep. But with video games, I feel like that high stays there with you for a lot longer.
It's a little more stimulating, right?
Stimulating,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. Overall, just currently in my life, I think I enjoy board games more.
Hmm.
But I definitely played a lot of video games when I was a kid. I enjoyed them. Played them with my brothers and my sister, taking turns even when it's not multiplayer games.
I mean, says the guy who was playing Call of Duty while holding our youngest kid.
But yeah, I've always enjoyed playing video games for sure. To your point, though, I think I've kind of mentioned this. For me, I find like you can definitely play engaging board games, and some board games can create that sense of like exhilaration at a specific moment. I don't think, or at least in my experience, board games don't typically hit like those peaks and valleys. The peaks aren't that high in a board game.
Hmm.
I think video games are a lot better at hitting those high peaks of emotion or stress, right? Um, and I think it's just a different level of immersion, right? In
Hmm.
in what you're experiencing. From the board game perspective, obviously a lot of it's happening in your head
Yeah.
and between conversations. Whereas in a video game, you're visually seeing and interacting with the world that's created, right?
And I mean, on that, when you're playing a video game together with someone else, because there is already a visual, there are some sounds around it, everyone has the common
Yes.
knowledge, right, of what's happening. Whereas in a board game, everyone is imagining different things, right? And so it doesn't get you as synced up
Mhm.
as you get in a video game.
Very true. I agree with that. But I guess to me, they're two different experiences. I wouldn't necessarily say one is better than the other, but to your point, I think I just like to experience them at different times, right?
Hmm.
Um, but to your point, I think I definitely feel a different type of exhaustion from the two. Like from playing multiple board games, usually the exhaustion is just of sitting down for so long and
Hmm.
needing to move, right? Whereas playing video games, I feel like it can sometimes be vision related, that it's just exhausted from watching, potentially maybe not blinking enough,
Yeah.
as well as sometimes just mentally fatiguing, right? There's just a lot going on if you've been playing for a while or the type of game. Maybe it's very visually stimulating and um,
Or even when you have, like certain objectives that you have to get to
mhm.
and that you keep dying before getting there. And so you keep trying over and over and over.
Yeah,
And it just gets exhausting to keep
it
trying,
does.
right? At
Yeah,
some point.
absolutely. Um, so yeah, I think that it's just that different type of exhaustion that you get from one or the other. But they're definitely very different experiences.
Hmm.
I think for us, when it comes to video games, like we definitely play um, like platform games and things like that. But when we play as a family, I think maybe not, maybe it's fairly even, but we've been enjoying more of the mobile games, I guess, right? Where you're standing, not mobile on device, but like
Okay.
being mobile while you're playing, whether it's like Just Dance or like Mario Party or things
Hmm.
like that, where you're moving at least a little more than just your
Hmm.
thumbs, right? Um, so I think it still provides that level of engagement in the
Hmm.
video games. Um, and to your point, we tend to get very excited and screaming or moving around a lot, getting exhausted and enjoying the physical aspect of playing those video games.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the Just Dance. It's probably because I always beat everyone. Even though I'm not a good dancer, I don't know how I do it. Um, but yeah, like thinking of that game, the Dragon Ball Z fighting game. I used to like fighting games a lot, but now it's like my forearms can't do all of that hitting. And so from a hand stress perspective, it's probably from all the time that I spend on the computer, right? Sitting down
Yeah.
every day. But I feel like playing board games is more, I don't know, it's better for my body. Even though, yeah, like sitting down is not so great. And what, once in a while I'll stand up
Maybe
and
not
just
better,
play
but you
with
mean
them.
like more relaxing.
More relaxing,
Yeah.
yes. In the sense that it's not putting more stress on my joints. I'm not like trying to, with my fingers trying to hit the buttons too hard. So I find it easier. Um, but yeah, to your point is like once you have that shared visual, like everyone is seeing the same thing, everyone is hearing the same things. Uh, it just gets you more connected, and it's like more exciting, right? Because you're all seeing the same thing playing out.
Yeah. So I know you brought up a question the other day about video games, which is, do video games limit or constrain your imagination versus a board game? So I know I have an opinion, but I'd like to hear yours first.
Well, I think it does, right?
Hmm.
Which could be good or maybe not. I think if you're someone who has a very creative mind, it might not allow you to dream up more than what you're seeing, right? And you're at the expense of the designer of how much you can imagine within that world or level in the video game context. But also, if you're not someone that, like, for example, when I'm reading a book, I I skim over the details because like that doesn't interest to me. Like I just want to know the story. I don't care what color was the room, how much lighting there was. And so for me, having that given to me in like the context of a video game is a lot easier because I don't have to think about that.
Hmm.
And I don't really care, but it enhances the experience, right? To be able to see it. Whereas in a board game, because I'm not thinking of those details, sometimes I just don't get into it as much as I see, the kids or you. Like, I can see that you're thinking of something that I'm definitely not, thinking about, right?
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily that it's something that I feel like I'm lacking. It's just a nice to have when I'm playing a video game. It's just
Hmm.
a given. What do you think?
So I actually think the opposite. So I don't think video games actually constrain your imagination. I see it more as establishing a foundation. So playing a video game and being immersed in this world to me gives you a structured foundation. It's showing you what the world could be like and how you interact with it. Yes, as you're directly playing the game, you're limited to what you're presented with and how you interact with it. But once that game is off, you can still continue in that world in your mind and expand on it
Mm.
exponentially.
I've
And we
never
see
done
that. Well, but
that.
like as an example with our son, right? Like he loves playing Sackboy, and as soon as he's done playing video games, he's gonna go upstairs to the toy room and he creates his own
Right.
Sackboy worlds and he
Mhm.
plays them out. Um, and the way I see it is really I don't see there's any limit for them to, or like a video game designer can't really limit that, right? Your ability to take that world that they present to you and just expand on it, whether it's through playing with toys, whether it's writing stories about it, whether it's even potentially creating your own game based on what was presented to you. It to me, it's just that building blocks if you treat it that way and you can build on top of it. Um, to me, the limitation of creativity, I would say the best example of that to me is Games Workshop. That's a company that's pushed in the recent years to own their specific designs, rename their their armies and their species so that they have a distinct name specifically to Games Workshop, where they've gone to the point where their tournaments and their painting competitions do not allow third party parts even. Like you
Mm.
have to use their pieces. They're constraining the narrative to the point where, there's uproars of, that you can't introduce females into this specific army type because it's not in the lore and it's not dictated by the company. Um, to me, that's limiting creativity.
Mhm.
Like you have no way to. I mean, you can express yourself for sure at home, but if you were to try and compete in these things, it's limited. You're
Mhm.
not allowed to do these things. Period. That to me is a world that they've created, they've owned, and they're trying to constrain the creativity around it. Um, so when I see that and I think of video games, to me, it's just completely different. Like
Mhm.
you can take that world that they present with you and you can expand on it however you want.
But that's just Games Workshop, right? It's not board
Yeah,
games
it's
in
not board games
general.
in general. That's true. I would agree with that. But yeah, from my perspective, I definitely don't see video games as constraining creativity.
So you mentioned that the example of our son who will try to act out
Yeah.
everything, right? And make um turn the whole playroom into a Sackboy
Yeah.
level. But I think that that's normal for kids. Do you feel like that creativity flowing after you play a video game?
Um, yes.
Okay, well, tell me. Can you turn
Um,
your office into a Sackboy level too?
no, but I mean, like just the idea of like playing a Nerf gun battle and envisioning like a Call of Duty level, right? Or even I guess a concept that I wanted to build a wargaming table for like Warhammer 40K, but recreating some of my favorite Call of Duty levels, like trying to make miniature scale models of those levels that I can actually play in with figures.
Mhm,
To me, that's I still think that's such a cool idea because there's certain levels in Call of Duty that I just absolutely loved.
mhm.
Now, to be fair, the rule sets of these tabletop games probably don't lend themselves very well to some of the like the way the levels were designed in the video games. So that's really what's limited me from actually building them. Because like if I build it and the game doesn't support that type of structure and environment, then I can't really use it, right?
Mhm.
um, but yeah, it's something that I'd love to do.
Now, do you have a preference of what type of games do you like to play as a family?
You mean video games?
Yes.
Yeah. I do like the, I guess, 3D platform style games more. I know they're not quite as interactive physically, but I do feel just that heightened level of stress.
Like, what do
um,
you mean?
so like Crash Bandicoot, Super Mario, Minecraft Dungeons, where like you've got your 3D platform, you've got the different levels that you're going through versus something like Just Dance or Mario Party and things like that, or Mario Kart. I still enjoy those games, but I really like the level of stress and tense and excitement where we're all screaming because either we're barely beating this boss creature and we're all dying,
Mhm.
or it's just challenging jumps to try and get to specific um, parts of the level because things are moving or things are on fire or flooding, right? And we keep dying, and it's there's that heightened level of stress that gets created. I like that tension
Mhm.
when we're playing those types of games.
Actually, on that, I've noticed that with board games, we usually tend to go for cooperative ones with the kids,
Mhm.
just because we don't want to be like too heavy-handed on defeating them. But with video games, especially with that, what's the Boomerang Fu?
That's a good one.
Yeah, I feel like so that one is definitely, a free for all. But I feel like even then we enjoy a lot, even if we're losing or like the gang beast.
Yeah,
Uh, like we all want to win, but at the same time, it's so much fun that we don't necessarily mind if we don't win it.
yeah, yeah. I do that as well. Um, and like the Dragon Ball Z Fighter game. I know we've been playing a lot of Crash Bandicoot. I know that's typically one player, but we swap
Hmm.
between them. It's a game I played when I was a little kid as well, and surprisingly, it's still just as difficult as I remember when we were kids. So it's enjoyable. Um, plus, I like the comments when the kids say that I'm the best video gamer. If they can't beat something, they pass it to me to beat it.
Yeah. I keep thinking that I should probably be sneaking in some game time for myself to get
Yeah.
better. Because, like, for example, when we were playing Sackboy recently, they need like I was the only one alive making it to the last what are they called, the sphere thingies?
Hmm.
Orbs, I think they're called. And we knew where it was, and it was hard to get it. But as soon as they saw that I was the only one standing and we had no more lives, they were like, "Oh," like, "Let's just turn it off. We know how this is gonna go."
But yeah, I mean, we have fun though. That's the big thing, right? That's what I enjoy about those types of games is we're
Mhm.
still having fun as a family. Um, Even though, especially when our son starts getting stressed and he starts kicking everybody.
What do you think about with video games? And probably I don't know if it's fair to say that most of them, but as the more you play them, the better you get at it.
Hmm.
Whereas in board games, the more you play them, like not you're not necessarily gonna get better because there's some randomness sometimes. There's even if you're using strategy, the other person is also changing their strategy. So if there's variables, right? You're never gonna come back to it and say, I'm gonna try a different strategy and see how it works because the other the counterpart is also moving. Whereas in a video game, you have the level that is gonna be exactly the same. If you're collecting items, they're gonna be exactly on the same spot for the most part. But you as like how your character, how you move around and knowing where things are, you get better at it and navigating probably the world and like so do you think that with video games the skill set keeps growing whereas with board games you don't necessarily grow that skill set?
Um, Good question. I don't think I've ever thought about it, and you bring up a good point. Um, I think this this brings me back to some of the stuff I had read about and watched some videos around, sort of like the benefits of video games, right? Good video games are built around challenging you and presenting you with challenges as a puzzle. And to your point, those puzzles are for the most part static, right?
Hmm.
As you try and solve them, it builds that ability to overcome a challenge or adversity, right? It's set there. You may not be able to do it, but you can just try over and over and over and over and over again until you master the ability to solve that puzzle or that challenge within the video game. Um, I think the biggest difference between a video game and a board game to me is probably just the cycle time, to use a business term, right? Uh, Um, you can iterate and challenge and try again so quickly in a video
Mm-hmm.
game, just the way they're built, right? You die, you respawn, you die, you respawn. And you can get so many cycles of trying to overcome that challenge. Whereas in a board game, um, even quick board game is still typically 10 to 15 minutes, right? Which is very different from when you're talking about seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think just that in itself lends differently to that mastery, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
that's for me one of the biggest things of mastering anything. It's just repetition. Not just repetition, but that's the biggest factor is committing to put in the time to practice over and over again. And I think you can just get more of that out of a video game
Mm-hmm.
doing that, more chances to do that than you can with a board game. But I do think that if you were to play the same board game over and over again, I think you'd probably have a very set strategy and probably be able to execute on it very well.
Oh,
I
I
mean,
think you get.
they have world championships of board games,
Mm,
so
I think it depends on the board game, right? Because sometimes the rules, if you don't know them, like you're gonna be missing out on things that you could potentially do. And the better you get at them, the faster the game can move, the better strategy that you can make. But I think that there's a lot of board games that, again, because when you're playing with other people, they're it's not a static thing, right? Like they're also taking different actions, and some of them are just chance based, right? So like there's not a lot to do. One of the things that you mentioned about the video games having a shorter cycle, it makes me think actually on the experience of when you have multiple people playing in a game, in a board game, where if someone gets defeated and it's out of the game, you just have to sit there awkwardly waiting for everyone else to finish. Whereas in a video game setting, you don't have to wait for that long to get respawned or for everyone else to die and everyone having to start over.
mhm.
So I feel with the board games, you end up just like having to stand up or you're sitting there doing nothing. And when we play video games, like you're sitting there doing nothing, but it's so like it goes by so fast
Mhm.
that it just like I don't feel the difference.
Yeah, that's true.
Not the difference, sorry. I don't feel the wait time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
um, so I don't know if that answers your question.
Yes, I think it did.
Okay. Yeah, and I think you do have to find balance, and again, not that there's or video games are video games, and how you choose to leverage them in your life is obviously up to you. From our perspective, I think one thing that we're always conscious of, and I think our kids are conscious of now as well, is video games that are like isolating and don't involve anyone, that
Hmm.
we're not spending a lot of time in those types of games. Um, Again, not that it's not our preference or anything, it's just we want those opportunities to connect, especially with our,
Hmm.
our busy lifestyle, right? So, between work and school and after school
Activities.
activities and everything like that, um, the ability to spend time together, even when playing video games, I think is valued and cherished amongst the
Hmm.
family, right? So yeah, I think we're just um, not conscious, or I guess, yeah, maybe we're just making that conscious decision that the video games we select are inclusive to everybody in some
Hmm.
manner, right? Because like even Crash Bandicoot is a single player game, but we still use it as a multiplayer game, just switching the controllers between
Hmm.
lives. um, yeah, so I think I know there's obviously board games that you can play as a one player game as well. Um, I know that I think pretty sure there's only about one that we own. But that game in particular plays really, really fast. You die almost instantly.
Hmm.
And even that one I've kind of played it where I die, you give it a try, you die, and someone else gives it a try, right? Where we're passing it around. And just enjoying that challenge of the game. Um,
It's actually it's different, right? Like when you're playing a game, you're out early and you're observing, and sometimes it can get boring. With that one game that you have, it's interesting to see the strategy that people are doing. So, as an observer of a one player game, or at least the one game that we
yeah.
own, it's very interesting compared to seeing it from having been part of the game and then not being part of the game
Yeah.
anymore. I feel like there's a lot of I don't know. It just gets interesting, right? Like to observe, and it's not the same when you're observing because you lost.
Yes. Yeah. And I couldn't remember the name. Now I remembered it was Demon Ship. Demon
Mm.
Ship is the game. Um, and I enjoy it. Like it's not a complex set of rules. It's very easy. It's very chance based because you're just rolling dice
Hmm.
to determine what's happening. So there's not a lot of control you have over in terms of who's going to react, whether it's you or the monsters. And then when you do get the opportunity to take actions, you're obviously very limited in what you do. Um, so it's definitely hard. And as you said, the, the time it takes from start to death
Hmm.
is usually so short that it's fun to observe the other individuals struggling with the same challenges.
Yeah. Another difference too is the connectivity with people that are not nearby, right? So now that with video games you can do a lot of online gaming. So
Mhm.
like when we have done Mario Party, it's really fun to play with family members that are in their homes
Yeah.
somewhere in another city. Whereas a board game is very hard to find. First of all, it's very hard to find a way to make it work when you're not in the same physical space, and also that they're not there are not a lot of board games in an online version that work just as good as the physical ones.
Well, I mean, to be fair, that's our experience, right?
Yeah.
I know there are online platforms we just never really leverage them, so I don't know how well they play.
Well, because you gotta pay for them.
Yeah. But yeah, I think to your point, it's not going to be the same. At least I assume it's not going to be the same. You don't have the same experience
Hmm.
of a board game on a digital platform. But yeah, I think video games obviously are built for that connectivity and that interaction. And you have those digital avatars and you're able to interact with your characters. So yeah, I think it definitely relates or
Hmm.
enables that connectivity a little bit better. Um, and I mean, even just in travel, right? The ability to have a handheld device and play a game
Hmm.
to make the travel time of a long trip pass by faster. It's definitely easier to do that than play a game in in a car or on an airplane seat.
Yeah.
um, I know we played Uno, but even that was a bit of a challenge, right? Trying to bend back and look at what everybody's doing.
Well, just balancing the cards,
Balancing
right?
the cards, yeah, make sure the deck doesn't slide all over the place.
And even the the battleships, the travel version,
Mhm.
it's still pretty hard because it's like first of all, just to grab it, it's so tiny. But then on top of that, like the other person is not supposed to see it, right? So if you're traveling, you're likely sitting side to side, not in front of each other. So it makes it for an awkward just position
Yeah.
sideways.
Yeah, so I think that's definitely an advantage video games have over board games,
Hmm.
in that travel space. Again, I know there's travel games. There's lots of travel games. It's just I don't think it's equal play footing, right?
Yeah.
And video games definitely have the advantage there. I think one of although I guess maybe not so true nowadays. Um, I was gonna say video games tend to cost more, especially on on a system. Um, Not so much maybe mobile games, but like on a system like Nintendo or PlayStation or Xbox. Video games typically costing 80 to maybe even $160, anywhere between there. Um, I think board games definitely cost less.
There's probably a lot of board games that are on
There's a
that are
lot
cheaper
more
than that.
options. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely a lot more options at the lower price points for board games versus video games. I mean, I'm not an expert. I just get that general feeling. And I feel like in terms of video games, at least for me as well, growing up, there's not a lot of video games that you ever play to completion versus a board game where you play and you play to the end of the game, right? And then you play it over and over again. Video games are typically just trying to get to the end, and at some point, either you accomplish it, but more often than not, you just get to a point where you're kind of fatigued and bored with the game, and you move on to the next
Hmm.
one. Um, so I think that's definitely a different experience from video games to board games. I do think you have more often that feeling of accomplishment from a board game maybe from overall accomplishment, whereas the video games feeling of accomplishment typically comes from like challenges
Hmm.
throughout the game, not completing the game.
I will disagree with that. I think that those challenges are like the accomplishment feeling of those specific challenges are just as good as if you were to complete the whole game. Because I feel like that's the purpose of designing these challenges, right? To keep people engaged and coming back, and the challenges likely keep getting harder because, assumingly,
Yeah,
you're improving your skills as well, and so it keeps you challenged enough to keep coming back. Whether they do a good job at keeping you engaged all the way to the end. But I don't like. I will be interested actually to know if game designers, expect people to actually complete. Because I feel like if you're going for completion, like at that point, maybe you're like a pro great gamer, right? That you want to actually say, I completed this game. And look at my stats or,
yeah,
things like that. Whereas for people that are just playing to have fun, like I wouldn't expect them to. I think that the accomplishment of that one milestone is just as good as completing a game. I think. I'm not
yeah.
sure.
I think so. I'd agree with that as well. But yeah, that would be an interesting question to ask. Do game designers typically design games to a certain point, or do they actually expect players to get to the end of their games?
Hmm. And the other thing too that just came to mind is with a video game, you can save your progress and you can
Mhm.
come back whenever you want to. Whereas in a board game, you have to finish the whole game.
Yeah, typically.
Otherwise, I mean, you can leave it out on the table, but it just doesn't feel the same, right? It's not because it takes sometimes a long time to complete just the one game.
Mhm.
Um, Whereas the time management aspect in a video game, because everything plays so much faster, you could potentially complete a level within 5 minutes, right? Whereas a board game is going to take you at least 10 minutes to complete the game. So I feel like that's another, not necessarily a better thing, but just a very different thing of how the speed at which you play and being able to just come back and pick it up. It's very different between the two.
Yeah, it's a very different experience. You're right. Especially the ability to like play this game for 20 minutes, save it, switch games, play that
Mm-hmm.
for another, save it, switch to another game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that context switching of what type of fun you want to experience. There's definitely that ability to switch quickly and have that variety in
Mm-hmm.
video games that you don't really get out of board games. Especially since you're typically playing with more people, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's not like you can just say pause, let's switch and play this game for a bit.
And I mean, it's not like you have unlimited space either, right? If
True,
you
yeah,
want to leave it out to play it later, maybe you already used up all of your
yeah,
table space and you can't just bring another game out.
yeah. All right. I think that might bring us to the end of today's discussion. Then
Yeah, I think so.
I think so. So overall, what's your feelings between video games versus board games?
I think that you can't compare them because they're meant to be completely different. At its core, both of them are meant to be fun. Both of them are meant to be challenging, rewarding. I think that you can still get the social aspect with both of them, depending on which type of games you're playing, of course, I would say. But I think that it's a very different experience that it's not that is better, that one is better than the other, but rather, depending on your context or your mood, one might be a better fit than the other.
Yeah, to your point, I don't think it's a direct like apples to apples
Mhm.
comparison, right? They're built for different experiences. They're going to provide you different experiences. Um, you're going to interact and engage with them differently, even with like the members that you're playing the game with. Are going to interact and act differently with in a video game setting versus a board game or an RPG or tabletop setting. Um, yeah, they're just different ways to have fun, and I think both of them are great ways to have fun.
Mhm.
Uh, and to your point, I think it's just what are you up for today?
Mhm. I mean, you can have just as much fun by playing some soccer outside if it's a
Yes,
nice day,
absolutely. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like, you know, with our friends that we game with frequently, there have been some times when, like the last time that we were playing, what's it called? The
Tetherball.
Yeah, tetherball. That was really fun.
Yeah.
There's been a couple of times when we've just walked over to the park and played, like
Soccer.
just
Yeah.
kick the ball around. And so that's just as much fun as the board gaming time.
Agreed.
Yeah.
It's all about what you want to do to have fun that day.
Yeah. It's all about having fun. That's the
Yes,
important thing.
exactly.
Enjoying yourselves and spending that time with other people, right? And having fun together.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for today's discussion. Ready to sign off?
Yes, we gotta make a list of what games we can possibly bring
Yes.
that can fit into our bags.
So the two of us can play some Rising Sun together.
Oh, no, you and your rising sun. There's actually no space for that one.
No.
Oh, thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.